Good morning, mid-morning, everyone, and welcome to our Toastmasters District 3 webinar Lunch and Learn series. My name is Lisa Raymond, and I'm going to walk you through today on a wonderful journey by introducing our presenter today. Beth Boaz comes to us all the way from Colorado. She is a DTM, for those who may not know, that's Distinguished Toastmaster, but she has some other credentials that really interested me. She is a PID, which is a Past International Director. She also holds a credential of PE, which is a Professional Engineer, and a PMP, which is a Professional Meeting Planner. Is that correct, Beth?
Project Management Professional.
Project Management Professional. Thank you. I apologize for that. Throughout her career in Toastmasters and in her professional career, Beth Boaz has employed a secret communication and leadership tool called humor. She will share with you how you can leverage this tool as well, even if you don't think you're particularly funny. Beth's background isn't humorous at all. She's a civil engineer by education and holds the designations of professional engineer and project management professional, PMP and PE. A Toastmaster for nearly 40 years, Beth has earned the Distinguished Toastmaster status in the traditional education program and is pursuing her third Pathways path. She has served in leadership roles, including District 26 Governor and International Director. Through it all, Beth has employed, sometimes quirky, but hey, that's us, a sense of humor to keep audiences and teams engaged and motivated, both inside and outside of Toastmasters. Yes, you can use humor to show your personal and professional benefit and your human side, even if you don't consider yourself to be a funny person, and Beth will show you how. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome to the stage, Beth Boaz.
I'm walking up to the stage. Now I'm turning on my screen. All right, and I would encourage you, if you haven't already done so, to put it on split screen so that you can see the slides and also see me in case I do anything interesting. Humor, your secret communication and leadership tool. Well, like a good Toastmaster, let's start by giving our objectives for this presentation, which are to help you, all 5 of you, use humor as your secret communication and leadership tool. And I guess it'll be a really well-kept secret. So I want to start, and it's no fair because some of these people know me. You ever played the little game, 2 truths and a lie? So I'm going to make 3 statements about myself. 2 of them are true. 1 of them is a lie. And I want you in the chat to decide which is which. And I will need someone, since I'm screen sharing, to tell me which ones are winning. So 2 truths and a lie. Number 1, I own at least a dozen of those red clown noses. Number 2, I have performed at the Comedy Works, that's a Denver comedy club, open mic night. Or number 3, I won a humorous speech contest. All right, so put in your chat which of those you think is the lie. And maybe Lisa, if you can keep an eye on the chat and tell me what's winning. Of course, you're on mute, so it'll be a little harder in my.
That would be too. Good Lord. I love technology. Okay, so we have a vote for number 2. We have a vote for number 1. I'm going to put my vote in. I think number 2 is not correct, but I don't know. I think we're missing one. So let's see, 2,
Yes.
2, 1,
Some of these
2.
people know me too well, so.
Yep, so it looks like number 2 wins.
Okay, well, let's see how you did. Let's see if my screen, the ongoing, whoops. All right, so number 1, do I own a dozen clown noses? I do, and there they all are. Woo! Okay, why does anyone need a dozen clown noses? I'm not sure. Number 3, have I won a humorous speech contest? Okay, well, it was only an area level contest and it was 9 years ago. But yes, I took first place in the Area F6 2012 humorous speech contest. Yay! So those of you that guessed number 2 are correct. I have never performed at the Comedy Works or anywhere on an open mic night. So pat yourselves on the back for figuring that out. And we'll talk more about this exercise a little bit later and what it might be good for. Here is what I'm going to talk about today. We're going to talk first about why we should use humor. And then we're going to talk about how we should use humor. And then the question in everybody's mind is, what if I'm just not funny? I know all of you are important professionals. You have very serious jobs, both inside Toastmasters and in what I call the real world. They're stressful. You have to work with teams, and sometimes those teams don't get along. And how can you use humor? I guess I would say, with a situation like that, how can you not use humor? So humor has a number of benefits. It has some personal individual benefits, and it has some business benefits. And doesn't it look like everybody's office? Everyone's just sitting around the computer laughing. So let's talk first about those personal benefits. So there are some actual physical benefits to humor and to laughing. It's known to decrease stress for people. Now, how does it do that? It does that by giving us control over the situation. I like to think that in any stressful situation, we can react in 3 different ways. One is to just passively accept it. Oh, it's all right. I don't care. Second is to get angry and to vent. And the third is to respond with humor and wit. And I think clear back to college, a situation I faced, we had towels that were issued by the dorm, but woe be those that lost those towels because they belonged to the college. So, and periodically towels would go missing and people would either go, oh, well, my towel's missing. I guess I'll have a fine, passively. Or they would write these scathing notes and put them on the board. Oh, whoever stole my towel, you're a dirty, rotten thief. Well, then my towel went missing. I wasn't going to just take it. And I knew that putting the mean notes up didn't really help. So I thought, what can I do? So I put up my own sign. And it was just a little notice. It said, warning to whoever took my towel. Please be aware that pink eye is very contagious and you might want to go to the health service. Now, did I get my towel back? No, but hopefully it gave somebody a little moment of thought and it made me feel just a little better. Laughing is like inner jogging, because when you think about it, when you laugh, your cardiovascular system's involved, you're breathing deeper, and it can actually lower your blood pressure. Important to us now. There's been studies that show that laughing increases your immune system. Of course, they always do these studies on college students, the ones with and without pink eye, and they would test them and find that if they watched a humorous video, they had a better immune system than if they watched a not so humorous video. And it can even help us reduce pain. And maybe you've read the stories of Norman Cousins, who was the one that had a very debilitating physical ailment and found that if he could just laugh for 15 minutes, he could sleep peacefully and pain-free for several hours. So laughing and humor is good for us physically. Mentally, it improves our brain function. Yeah, I like this is here's the normal brain. Problems go in, solutions come out. There's my brain, problems go in, jokes come out. But the mental benefits of humor improves our brain function, our disposition, energy, creativity. And it reduces anger and frustration and tension and anxiety. And boy, in the climate we're in today, who doesn't need those sorts of benefits? So we've seen personally, now in business. Now, what can humor do for us in business? And by business, it could be Toastmasters, it could be your own consulting firm, it could be whatever line of work or activity you're in. Creative problem solving. Now, how does humor help us solve problems? Well, think about how humor works. Humor is all about stretching our thinking or changing our perspective. And that's exactly what we need if we're going to solve a problem. There's a writer on creativity named Roger von Eck. I don't know how, O-E-C-H, however you pronounce that. And what he said was that humor stretches your thinking, and then he would give some hypothetical questions to get your brain moving, like, what would chairs look like if your knees bent the other direction? Okay, it's not necessarily humorous, but it's just an example of something that gets you thinking in a completely different way. It helps you combine unrelated ideas. So it's all those jokes like, what do you get when you cross? Or what do Winnie the Pooh and John the Baptist have in common? Winnie the Pooh, stuffed bear, John the Baptist, religious character. They both have the same middle name. Winnie the Pooh, John the Baptist. Now you think, well, what's that have to do with anything? You know, these things are, what do you get when you cross? Well, somebody along the line must have thought, what would I get if I crossed a copier and a telephone and invented the now obsolete fax machine? Humor helps us really change our perspective, stretch our way of thinking. And it makes us take things less seriously and really start challenging the rules. So you don't get into that, but we've always done it that way mindset. Not that Toastmasters would ever get into that. It facilitates learning. David Brooks, a past world champion of public speaking, or maybe you're never a past world champion of public speaking, says, when we laugh, we relax. And when we relax, we learn. And learning, especially those of us that are of a certain age, the AARP says that's the best thing you can do to keep your brain flexible, is to always be learning something new. And again, a study on students, done on students at a university. They were in a statistics class. Now, statistics, pretty dry subject. But one of the classes was taught, regular statistics with the charts and the graphs. And one was taught incorporating cartoons and memes and funny things. And predictably, since I'm using this in my presentation, the students in the humor enhanced class scored in the 80th percentile, where also predictably the ones in the normal class scored right down the middle in the 50th percentile. Humor can help us learn things. It can ease tensions. Being around the office, well, that's kind of a throwback. Office, what a concept. But there's often tensions that arise in a work environment. An example when I was serving as a project management on a dam safety project, I had done something which is lost to the mists of time to make Xcel Energy, our Colorado energy provider, angry. And they wrote a blistering letter to my boss. And I was kind of afraid about that. And sure enough, like a day later, my boss walks into the office and he is holding this letter from Xcel Energy. I thought, oh, here it comes. I'm back to the drafting table. And what he said was, well, I have this letter from Xcel Energy. I guess you're off their Christmas card list. Now, it wasn't the world's funniest joke, but by him approaching it with humor, it just took the tension out of that situation. And then we were free to brainstorm how we kept from getting the power turned off in our office. It can help us, I skipped one. It can help us make a point. Another story out of my deep, dark past. I like to think of her as my humor role model. Margaret Sibley was a highly placed executive within the Bureau of Reclamation, which was a very male-dominated, engineer-driven organization. And she was one of the first women to be in upper management in that organization. Her first day on the job, her boss gave her the employee handbook. So she dutifully studied the employee handbook and came to this statement about the dress code. And it said, employees shall wear a necktie every day at all times. Margaret read that. Now, again, she had those three choices. She could get angry, she could let it go. And as I learned about her later, she always took the witty path. And what she did was went to her husband's closet, and in the back of the closet, she found all those ties that were too ugly for him to wear anymore. And every morning she would dutifully put on a really ugly tie and wear it to the office. And it did not take long, a couple of days before her boss said, Margaret, what are you doing? What is with those ties? And she just pulled out the handbook, said, well, it says here, I need to wear a tie every day. So I was complying with the dress code. You think she made her point? Do you think that the handbook got changed? And yet she didn't have to get angry. She didn't have to accuse anyone of anything. We talked about easing tensions, building consensus. If you can get a group united around an inside joke or making something the common enemy. My building was the elevators. If you were ever late to a meeting, it was the elevator, even if you were, of course, coming from the same floor. But if you can develop some inside jokes, it really helps bring a team together. And denoting self-confidence. Now, I share this picture, and then I will explain it. In my job as a project manager, I was the voice of the Dam Safety Project for the media. And I was doing one of my first TV interviews without our public information officer along, because she said I was the only engineer she would trust to talk to the media. And I had been wandering around this dam site with a reporter from Channel 4 News in Denver for probably an hour. So I was starting to get a little comfortable. In fact, maybe I was starting to get a little overconfident. We're standing with this dam behind us. And the reporter asked me, well, am I safe here? And flippantly, I said, you don't see me wearing my life jacket, do you? And thought nothing of it. He had hours of footage, I swear. I'm back in the office when one of my employees calls me. He said, Beth, are you wearing your life jacket? And I went, oh, no. Because that was one of the clips that they chose for this Colorado-wide news story. I immediately got on my computer and started sending an email to our public information officer. And it went like this. I will not joke with reporters. I will not joke with reporters. I will not joke with reporters. When I finally got to see the clip myself, and I confirmed this with our public information officer, it did not come off as sounding flippant. It came off as that I was so confident that I could joke about it. So you have to use this with a little bit of caution and discretion, but sometimes interjecting some humor indicates that you're in control of the situation. So, section 1, why should we use humor? I guess the answer would be, why not? So we move along to how do we use humor? And I want to talk about 4 different things. I was a math major, can you tell? 4 different things. I want to talk about, before we go any further, what topics are or aren't appropriate for using humor, especially around the office. How do we use humor in presentations and meetings? How can you be humorous in your physical environment? And then how can you be humorous in a virtual world as we go to more and more virtual meetings? I like to categorize topics that are and aren't appropriate into 3 categories. Green, which means perfect for humor. Yellow, there's a few caveats. And red, stay away. The topics that are green, that are great for using humor in any setting, is always yourself, self-deprecating humor. Okay, with one exception, if you are presenting to a crowd that already doubts your credentials, maybe don't add fuel to the fire by enhancing their bad view of you. But usually start with or use self-deprecating humor is always good. And when you're working with a team, good topic for humor is always a team obstacle, angering Excel energy, a problem that you're facing. So those are the topics that are good to go. Yellow, making fun of other team members. Now, I have a very simple rule of thumb for this, and that is you can only kid people about things that they kid themselves about. Let me say that again. You can only kid people about things that they kid about themselves. I don't think it came out any better the second time. I mean, in a Toastmasters concept, we do a roast of our immediate past district. Well, it was a district governor back when I was there. And I was moderating the roast for an immediate past district governor who happened to be completely bald. Now, some people might be really self-conscious about that, but he always joked about it. So I could make jokes like, here's to our shining leader, the shining head of our organization, and, let's welcome our bald eagle, only because I knew he made fun of it himself. The topics that are off the table, controversial, emotionally charged topics. I saw one of my colleagues did a lot of public meetings, and public meetings tend to always be very emotionally charged. It's the only reason people come to them is to unload on you. Actually, I was making the presentation. It was pretty straightforward, and one of my colleagues was in the back, and he was smiling and nodding at my presentation. And at the end of the meeting, someone just unloaded on him. They said, he was smiling. He was smirking. He does not take this seriously. So that's when I learned that if people are very emotionally invested, probably best to stay away from humor. Probably also not good to make fun of or have humor about your clients, your competitors, other individuals. That just becomes mean. And again, as in Toastmasters topics, sex, religion, politics, just don't try it. Another rule of thumb somebody gave me was, how do you tell if a joke is inappropriate? It's if you feel like you have to start the joke by going. If you have to look around to see who's listening, that's probably not a joke that's good in a general setting. So using humor in presentations and in meetings, humor is a great way to establish rapport. I used to try to use this to my advantage as an engineer. I'd be talking to Rotary Kiwanis, one of those clubs, and they hear that it's going to be an engineer from the government. And already they're like, okay, pass the coffee. I'm going to need extra. So I would always try starting with some humor. Sometimes really bad humor, like, what did the fish say when he swam into the wall? Damn. Or one time I had planned to start with a joke about engineers, and that people only become engineers because They don't have enough personality to become an undertaker. There was a little luncheon beforehand, and I was talking to the guy next to me who was the president of the Rotary Club. And I told him, I'm going to start with this joke. And he said, oh, well, that'll be great because 2 of our big members are undertakers. And, maybe I'll take it out. He said, no, they joke about it, so you can too. So having some humor that relates to your audience or sets them at ease that it's going to be fun and that you're a fun-loving but respectable person. Humor can be a great way to get and keep attention. People are paying the most attention right after a joke. So you might want to insert some humor right before your main points. I saw a Toastmasters, part of the Toastmasters International Convention, a webinar the other day. And one of the panelists said, just because you're talking about an important topic doesn't mean it's inherently interesting. Putting humor in is a way to get people's attention back and make them really focused. I talked a little bit before about developing inside jokes with your teams. And that's what, I'd love to share some with you, but it would take so much setup and you'd still go, I don't get why that's funny. That's why they're inside jokes. But if there's something that keeps coming up, make it a source of an inside joke and it really bonds the team together. Humor to respond to glitches. Now the photo there on your screen, that's someone responding to more than a glitch with humor. House has been flattened by a tornado. And this little sign says, for sale, price reduced, some assembly required. So hopefully we don't ever have to respond to that big a glitch. But you can prepare for some that you know are going to come up. For example, someone forgets to mute or to unmute. So rather than just saying, you're on mute, maybe you can come up with something more creative, like, oh, Nancy, you're getting me to practice my lip reading skills. Thank you. Or whatever. That's a little more creative than you're on mute. So you can come up with things. Oh, the one I heard too is if you're suddenly tongue-tied and at a loss for words, you can turn that to your advantage and say, oh, I forget the English word for that, which then, instead of just making you look forgetful, makes it look like you're fluent in so many languages that you just couldn't come up with the English at the moment. The bottom line is take your project or your job or your team seriously, but don't take yourself seriously. Another thing in presentations is write the presentation first and then see if there are places to put in humor. Don't write the whole presentation like it's a humorous monologue. All right, humor in your physical environment. Remember physical offices? I know it seems like it was a long time ago. There's always somebody that's got that desk that's all full of toys and jokes and cartoons. So here was one that I used to do especially when I was a supervisor. I had which one's which? I had happy, and grumpy. So according to what sort of mood I was in, I would post either happy or grumpy at my office. And then people could use that as a warning as to when would be a good time to ask me a controversial question, maybe when happy was showing. Pictures, cartoons, I'll talk about that a little bit later. Somebody gave me a tip that if you want to find funny memes, all you have to do is Google funny plus whatever the topic is. So try it sometime, funny dam, and it'll come up with jokes and cartoons about dams. So lots of ways that our physical environment can encourage humor. Now, in this virtual world, it gets a little harder, but you can still, even in a virtual meeting, you can do a funny icebreaker. I started with the 2 truths and a lie. You could do that with a team. It's kind of fun, and you learn something about the team members. maybe there's a funny question. Have everyone respond to a question like, when I dance, I look like fill in the blank. Or you can have a little segment where someone is assigned to tell a joke, and then everyone rates it either thumbs up or thumbs down. You can do things with virtual backgrounds. Let's see if I can bring up whoops, nope, I guess I can't. I can't. Anyway, you can have funny virtual backgrounds. I have some great ones. I have one that's the Oval Office. I have one that's those meerkats all looking at each other. I have one that's the Brady Bunch, the little square. So there's all kinds of funny virtual backgrounds that you can employ. Let's see if I can get us to go back to the last slide. Oh, that went forward also. Okay. I love technology. Okay, there. And then in emails and in text messages, whatever, you can insert memes, emojis, all kinds of things you can do in a virtual world. So whenever you see this little COVID virus, that's a sign that it's something you can do in the virtual world. Keep an eye out for that. All right, so I'll open it again for people to chat, and maybe if Nancy or Lisa can monitor that, or actually, I think I can. How do you add humor to your virtual world? Anything you want to share, or any great ideas to replace "you're on mute"? Anyone have something they want to share? Shoot it into the chat there. Getting anything?
I know one of the things that Colleen uses, and I don't know exactly where she got it, but I truly, truly love it. And I really, really want one, is a mug that says "you're on mute," and she'll just hold it up.
Just hold it up.
And if that isn't the greatest reminder, besides me trying to tap my headphones, I don't know what is. It's fantastic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I get tired of going. So.
I get that. What was the funniest thing that you've seen as you've attended so many meetings and webinars online while we wait for people to put this in the chat? What's the funniest thing you've attended, or the funniest thing you've seen as you've attended meetings online?
Well, some of it is people, I'm trying to think. Well, some of them you have to work to see the humor of them. Like as Toastmaster clubs are going hybrid, sometimes it's, there's all kinds of interesting things that go on. But yeah, I don't know what the very funniest is. It's hard to say. Anyone come up with anything else? Otherwise, we're plowing forward so we can have time for questions at the end.
Well, I've been attending meetings, weekly meetings, that have been a real challenge. We're trying to work our way through some problems, but whenever we come to a solution or something, we have a team member that has a button that says, "nailed it." So whenever, just like the easy button, we'll go, "nailed it."
I like it. I think, yeah, it's a good way to bond a team so that they have sort of a shared, let's see if we can nail this one.
Wow.
All right.
All right, in the chat, while wait before saying you are on mute, you can see the person squinting to find the mute button. Makes sense, because sometimes I don't always have my glasses on, so I can relate to that. And you're saying you're on mute is stressing creating. That's from Linda.
Yes.
Fun to have a smiley face on a stick. Oh.
It's Tom Hobbs here. Tom Hobbs does that. He's District 26's man in the hat.
Oh, I'm sorry. Meant stress, not stressing. Okay, gotcha. Thank you, Linda.
All right, let's see. So, bottom line. So we're moving on then to what if I'm not funny? So, yeah, I don't even have a sense of humor anymore. It's literally just sarcasm and a general hate for the majority of the human population. Wow, that's not good. If you're not funny, please don't resort to sarcasm and a general hate for the majority of the human population. Here's some things. Now, here's the really, really good news, is that you do not need to be a stand-up comedian or even have performed at the Comedy Works in order to incorporate humor into your life and into your work. You don't have to be Amy Schumer. You don't have to be Chris Rock. You just need to establish a playful attitude. You don't even need to tell jokes. Just set a playful mood. And as a team leader, whether it's in Toastmasters or in work, you're the role model. So if you show that you think it's okay for people to have a good time while working, then that is how the team will evolve also. And the other good news is you can improve your sense of humor. Later, I'll recommend Googling it, but Googling it can send you pretty far astray. I found like scholarly papers with footnotes about how to improve your sense of humor. Now, that did not make me want to improve my sense of humor. Or there was somebody that had a 10-step program. So, well, at least it's not a 12-step program, so maybe it's not that bad. I have a 4-step program. So let me show you what that is. Smile, surround yourself. We'll talk about that. See the funny and read more about it. That's from the 1990s CBS public service announcements, because I know it seems like nobody reads anymore. But all right, so let's look at each of those. Smile. Now, all kinds of research shows that people that smile actually feel happier, where people are like, look angry, feel angrier. And there's also been research that shows that smiles, like yawns, are contagious. So if you smile, people around you will smile. Now, I did discover the difficulty of that in a COVID world. One of my friends gave me this lovely Halloween mask. I was taking a selfie then, showing her how much I loved it. And I have a big smile on my face. Now, does it look from that picture like I have a big smile on my face? So she actually replied, why were you so angry about this? So I have started to learn that while I think, if I'm smiling, they'll be able to tell. I'll smile at people in the grocery store with my mask on, and it's a little tougher in a masked environment. So if you don't get the response that you expect, it may be that nobody can tell you're smiling. So step 1 is easy. You don't really need a sense of humor to just smile. All right, step 2, surround yourself with humor in your environment. We already talked about, you can have little toys or signs or pictures. I used to always on my desk, well, maybe it's not humor, but I'd have a picture of myself on a beach. Anyway, set your environment to be playful and encouraging. You can watch comedies. I've known people that said, I always have, well, maybe DVDs are even obsolete now, but I always have a DVD in my player and I could hit whatever their favorite funny movie was, or go to Comedy Central or any of the channels that show old sitcoms and, find I Love Lucy or Laverne and Shirley or whatever your favorite comedy shows were or are currently. I mean, well, I don't know if I'm allowed to use the word shit, but Schitt's Creek, oh my gosh, so funny. And then surround yourself with humorous people. Now, those of you with really sharp eyes might recognize a couple of these people. The one with the long blonde hair, that's me. And the pirate, that would be one of your leaders, Nancy Starr Cassidy. And District, I know. District 3 was within my region when I was an international director, and I happened to be at a District 3 conference over Halloween. And it's a long inside story about why I'm dressed like Miss America, but has to do with Nancy Starr Cassidy was calling herself the blonde leading the blondes, because her entire trio was blonde. And so as their international director, I was the blonde leading the blondes. So, but surround yourself with people that are fun and you know them, and especially in Toastmasters, it's easy to find. Toastmasters tend to be very positive, very humorous people. And on the other hand, try to avoid as much as possible people that are the real Debbie Downers. See the funny in everything. See the funny in yourself. We all have embarrassing photos. That's me in, I don't know, 7th grade-ish. Yeah, that's okay. Enough said about that. Find the humor in life's ironies. So I love this piece of graffiti. I hate 3 things: vandalism, irony, and lists. And another bit of irony that I found when I was Googling it, of course, was that, a bit of irony, the most stolen book in the United States, the Bible. Anyway, that's a bit of irony. So look for those things. The one that comes back to me was one Christmas, my husband and I went to the post office on a Saturday, and there was a sign on the post office door, and it said, "Due to the Christmas rush, we will be closed this Saturday." Yeah, life's ironies. And the ultimate is to be able to see the funny in your problems. Now, here's a helpful hint. It's easier to start by finding the funny in other people's problems. So it's easier to laugh at this guy tripping over the Tonka truck than it is for this guy to joke about himself. So if you want to practice with other people's troubles, just don't tell them you're doing that. Don't tell them you're laughing at their misfortunes. But eventually, they say that humor is tragedy plus time. Sometimes it takes a really lot of time before you can laugh at your own pain. But sometimes if you work at it, you can shorten that time frame so that even right after something happens, you can say, okay, I can see how that would be funny. And then read more about it. Now there are books. This is a personal favorite that you see there, C.W. Metcalf, Lighten Up, Survival Skills for People Under Pressure. Sadly, the world just lost a very funny lady. Jeannie Robertson has some great books. Don't Let the Funny Stuff Get Away. She died just several days ago, but a very funny lady. I talked about Roger Von Eck, A Whack on the Side of the Head, things about being more creative. You can Google it, but beware that you might come up with the scholarly paper with the footnotes. Or this week only, if you are attending any of the virtual Toastmasters International Convention, there is a great webinar. And I have to look and get everybody's names right. Moderated by Stephen Dyer. He's on your upper left. Mark Brown, you might know as the voice of Toastmasters. Veronica Dangerfield. Obviously, which one's Veronica, I guess. No relation to Rodney Dangerfield, she assures us, despite the striking resemblance. And finally, Andrew Drew Tarvin calls himself a humor engineer, which I really like that. And I captured a few of their little quotes. Mark Brown, all things are difficult until they become easy. So maybe that's what humor is for you. It's difficult now, but it will become easy. Veronica talked about perfectionism is the enemy of creativity. We think, oh, I'm not good at jokes, so I'm not going to tell any. Well, that ruins your spontaneity if you're worried about being perfect. And this one was a little long, and I'm not sure I captured it exactly right. But Drew said, it's not that funny things happen only to funny people. It's that funny people see the things that happen to them in a funny way. Okay, so I'll give that a minute to sink in. What he's saying is just reiterating, look for the funny in everything around you. Because anything that happens to you may or may not, maybe it's not inherently funny, but you can probably find a way to make it funny. So if you get a chance, watch this webinar, Laugh and Learn the Magic Power of Humor. I should have just showed it and not bothered presenting. So bottom line of what if I'm not funny? This is Ron Burgundy, I think. People with a good sense of humor have a better sense of life. So just to summarize then, we have talked about why to use humor. We talked about the personal benefits, physical, mental. We talked about the business benefits of creating rapport. We talked about how to use humor, what topics are red light, green light, yellow light. And we talked about what to do if you're just not funny. And we have time for a couple more activities. One, I want you to take a moment and think about, of all this fire hose of stuff that I've sprayed on you, what's one step that you're going to take tomorrow? Is it something you're going to do to start appreciating the humor around you? Is it something you're going to do with a team you work with? So in the chat, put down some things that you're going to do tomorrow. Let's see. Well, David Odie said earlier you could wear a mask with a big smile painted on it. Anybody, what are you going to do with this information tomorrow? Tell you one of the things, tip, get a book by G.D. Robertson. This one is called Don't Let the Funny Stuff Get Away. She has some wonderful stories that are very funny. Oh, someone's writing a speech and they're going to add humor to it. Linda, call me. I'll help you with it. And another thing that they mentioned in that webinar was, if you add humor to a speech, you don't necessarily have to trumpet, okay, now I'm putting in humor. If it's just a witty saying and nobody laughs, fine, it was still a witty saying. And that takes away a little of the pressure. Now, humor is speech contest. Everybody knows you're trying to be humorous, so that's difficult. Looking at triples in her speech. Is that like something from the Olympics, like flips and things?
Yeah, I don't know. I was going to ask you about that because that sounds interesting.
Is that like repeating things 3 times? Or
while we're waiting for Linda, someone said they're going to dust off their blonde wig.
Oh, hey, I got mine in my closet. That wig has served me well. Past District 3, I wore it to a work Halloween party and embarrassed myself totally. And fortunately, my boss and my boss's 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 boss had good senses of humor and found it funny. Another moment where I thought my sense of humor had gotten me into trouble. 2 regular, oh, yes. So two things that are serious, and then a third one that's funny. Like, yeah, I'm trying to think of a good example of one. The best thing about Zoom is you can connect with people from around the world and you can share ideas and you don't have to wear pants. So something like that, where 2 things are serious and then one is like off the wall. In fact, I was in a project management webinar earlier today, and the woman that was the MC started off and said, I was a little nervous about this, and they always say, picture your audience in their underwear. She said, the problem is this is a hybrid meeting. So the truth is some of you probably really are in your underwear, and that kind of creeps me out. So
you never know until they stand up, though. That's part of the problem.
Really, yeah. Some of those ads, the one where the woman's trying to block out her kid with the coffee cup and where the guy's camera goes down.
Linda said she usually ends her introduction with a triple, and then the audience is warmed up when she starts.
Yeah. Either you can do it or you can have whoever's introducing you, the Toastmaster, the MC, set you up that way. So yeah. Good plan. Well, that didn't work. All right. So here's the bottom line of this whole thing is if you don't have a sense of humor, then you probably have no sense at all. And with that, I want to open it up for questions. And I guess can we unmute participants, or they're going to have to put them in the chat?
They'll have to put them in the chat. One of the fallacies of a webinar is that I could promote everybody to panelist, and that would make it more of a meeting, whatnot. And webinars saying, they can't talk to the presenter.
Yep. Okay, so if you have questions, stick them there in the chat.
Linda goes on, have the introducer read it and ask them to practice the timing. As Ed Tate says, ask them to read it as written. Yes. That could get somebody in a lot of trouble too. If they're not prepared. Yeah.
And what's the joke? What's the most important part of humor? Timing.
Well, that or even not even timing, but the unintended consequences of what you do. A lot of people that I've seen on meetings don't necessarily think or forget they're on camera, especially in saying like this. So in one meeting I was at, a gentleman was actually cleaning his ear with a Q-tip, and I wrote him a message that said, stop. Yes. You're on camera. Yeah. It was very embarrassing.
Yeah, especially early on Zoom. People would be eating or
standing up.
Yeah. I do have pants on here. Do you want me to prove it? You can't.
No.
Done. I have pants on. It's okay.
Oh my goodness. Let's see. Are there any questions for Beth? This has been a fantastic presentation. I'm glad you're here today.
And it will be available on YouTube, correct?
Yes, it'll be on our YouTube channel. We will push out as a replay, so that way everybody can still hear and see what your message was, which is a fantastic set of lessons from you and our audience of what we can do to add some humor into our speech. We don't think about doing it, I think, not because we're wanting to be perfect, but in my opinion, because we're afraid either to offend or it won't come off right, or the audience will sit there and not really react to it. And that's worse.
And one of the things, as I was talking about giving presentations to Rotary and whatever, is it just totally shocked people. So here, not only am I a government engineer, but a female. And face it, ladies, we're not known for our senses of humor. So I would start a speech with something funny, and there would be this silence, like, that almost sounded like humor, like in disbelief. So it was, and I'd usually bring our public information officer in the back, and she would like laugh in the back, and then they go, oh, maybe that was supposed to be funny. So not all humor gets a huge laugh, but if you see people just sort of nod and smile, maybe that's good enough for presentations.
And in this presentation, unfortunately, you can't see if the audience is laughing because it's not set up for that.
Yeah. And so maybe humor is even more important in virtual presentations because you can't always see whether people are engaged. So you have to make sure you do things to keep them engaged. I used to give presentations at an annual dam safety conference. Now, I gave a speech the other day, and my club laughed every time I said dam safety. It's like a bunch of fourth graders. But what was I going to say? Oh, so I used to give presentations at a dam safety conference. And the one time they were introducing me, and I was like, oh, yeah, I'm the technical expert on this project. And the introducer says, and next is Beth. And her presentations are always so, and I'm thinking, enlightening, brilliant. He said, entertaining. And I was a little crestfallen. I went, oh, okay. And Claire wants to know if I've always been funny or did I develop the skill? I grew up in a household where my dad had a really quirky sense of humor, which I appreciated. My mom didn't always. My mom's most quoted line was, I'm not in the mood for jokes. Tucker, I'm not in the mood for jokes, said my dad. So I think to a certain extent, I have always looked at the world from a different perspective. I haven't always had the confidence to share that because I thought, oh, people will think I'm weird, which you probably do, but now it doesn't bother me. So I think I've always had the appreciation for what's funny in the world. What I've had to develop is the confidence to share it. And I'm still working on the sense of when it's appropriate and not appropriate to use humor.
Sometimes has that been a little more difficult?
Yeah.
Has that been more difficult to gauge because we're online now and you can't always see everyone?
Part of it, yeah. But even in a face-to-face setting, I sometimes blurt out stuff that I think is funny and get those looks. It's like, sorry. And it's usually that rule about when people are taking things seriously and emotionally. Yeah, don't mess with joking with them.
I don't see any questions in the chat. I think you answered them all, or you did such a fantastic presentation. Yeah. You blew them out of the water and they don't have any questions.
Or everyone is checking their email on their phones and they haven't
ordering from DoorDash or something. We know.
That could be, yeah. Really, they're opening the door.
Well, if that's the case, we can give them a couple minutes back of their life. And thank you, Beth, for coming today. This was it was entertaining. It was very enlightening. And it has been a pleasure to hear you give your examples and lessons on how we can interject humor into our speeches.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. Thank Colleen when she gets back from all her dental work for inviting me also. And good luck with these presentations going forward.
Thank you. I appreciate that. We will have our next presentation coming up in 2 weeks with Linda Rea. And yes, we will make sure the link works. Not a problem.
Yes, sure, yeah.
So thank you, everyone, for attending today. Nancy, if you can stay on for the wrap up, we will let you get back to your life. And thank you again, Beth, for everything.
Yeah. Thank you, Beth.